All right, guys. So Pope Francis comes out the other day and says something kind of interesting about homosexuality. Let's dive into it. We'll do that in a second. But then he has to come out afterwards and kind of backtrack. And, you know, some people are saying, oh my God, you're way too lenient on them, on gay people. And then others are saying, oh my God, you're still being too harsh on gay people. So he makes this comment, which is trying to like split the difference in this ultra conservative religious culture. He tries to split the difference. Like, they're okay, but they're not fully okay. And you know, he's getting it from both sides now. So let's dive into it. Pope Francis has clarified his recent comments about homosexuality and sin, saying he was merely referring to official Catholic moral teaching that teaches that any sexual act outside of marriage is a sin. And in a note Friday, Francis recalled that even that black and white teaching is subject to circumstances that might eliminate the sin altogether. I love that. I love that. So what like, under what scenario are you allowed to suck off Bob? Right? Like, oh, there could always be mitigating circumstances where homosexuality is not a sin. I mean, I guess what? If somebody's got a gun to somebody else's head and they say, hey, I'll let you out of this, but you got to suck that dude off. In that scenario, that's okay. Well, hey, God understands that you were forced in that. Like, what are you saying? Like, what are you getting at here? They continue. Francis first made the comments in an interview January 24th with the Associated Press, in which he declared that laws criminalizing homosexuality were, quote, unjust, and that being homosexual is not a crime. Okay. So you hear that, and that sounds like, oh, based, right? Especially in this conservative culture that he lives in. But he went on to say, like, it's still a sin, though. So he goes, hey, laws criminalizing gayness are unjust, and being gay is not a crime. But he goes on to say, but it is a sin. So just remember, it's still a sin. So see, he's trying to, like, split the difference here. As he often does, Francis then imagined a conversation with someone who raised the matter of the church's official teaching, which states that homosexual acts are sinful or intrinsically disordered. Quote, fine, but first let's distinguish between a sin and a crime, Francis said in the pretend conversation. It's also a sin to lack charity with one another. His comments calling for the decriminalization of homosexuality were hailed by LGBTQ advocates as a milestone that would help end harassment and violence against LGBTQ persons. But his reference to sin raised questions about whether he believed that merely being gay was itself a sin. So you see, like, the more conservative types are going after him because this is too lenient, and LGBTQ groups are going after him because they're like, don't say we're sinning. This isn't a sin. And by the way, this idea like, oh, you should decriminalize homosexuality. But hold on now. He's not saying legalize gay marriage, right? He's not saying have non-discrimination protections under law. He's just saying you shouldn't lock people up for acts of being gay or for just being gay, right? Which is like, okay, true, but do you believe in equal rights? Nothing to say about that. Again, it's always like damning with faint praise with this, with the Catholic Church. Because look, this is the most progressive pope we've ever seen. But even with him being progressive, he's still within the guidelines and the parameters of a goofy little cult, right? And so he can't just keep it real and say the things that everybody knows intuitively are the right things about equality and justice, and now there's nothing wrong with it. He's got to try to split the difference, and it's kind of pathetic, man. It's kind of pathetic. The Reverend James Martin, an American Jesuit who runs the U.S.-based outreach ministry for LGBTQ Catholics, asked Francis for clarification and printed the Pope's handwritten response on the outreach website late Friday. In his note, Francis reaffirmed that homosexuality is not a crime and said he spoke out in order to stress that criminalization is neither good nor just. When I said it is a sin, I was simply referring to Catholic moral teaching, which says that every sexual act outside of marriage is a sin, Francis wrote in Spanish, underlining the final phrase. But in a nod to his case-by-case approach to pastoral ministry, Francis noted that even that teaching is subject to consideration of the circumstances, which may decrease or eliminate fault. He acknowledged that he could have been clear in his comments to the AP, but said he was using natural and conversational language in the interview that didn't call for precise definitions. As you can see, I was repeating something in general. I should have said, it is a sin, as is any act outside of marriage. This is to speak of the matter of sin, but we know well that Catholic morality not only takes into consideration the matter, but also evaluates freedom and intention, and this for every kind of sin, he said. Some 67 countries or jurisdictions worldwide criminalize consensual same-sex activity, 11 of which can do. Okay, anyway, you get the gist of it. Look, so he's getting it from both sides now. He's getting attacked by people who are like, hey, we're not sinning, dick. Like, this is just how we are. There's nothing wrong with it at all. Getting it from them. And he's getting it from the types that are like, no, it actually should be criminalized. This is a crime, and it's a sin. And so, I mean, look, it's the best advertisement I've ever seen for secularism. You know what I'm saying? Like, because in secularism, you don't need to sort of have some dialogue or look for some guardrails and a framework from some ancient book or from, you know, a litany of people who were leaders who were just regular dudes wearing robes, right? You could just, what do I think is fair? What do I think is just? What do I think is rational, logical, empathetic, sympathetic, etc.? Like, you could have a moral system based on reason as opposed to this nonsense, which is like he's clearly wrestling with his moral intuitions and like the text of his religion, because the text is way harder on homosexuality. Intuitively, he knows, though, like, it's not fair, we're not treating these people right, and so he finds this middle ground, and the middle ground is goofy, because it's not what we're supposed to cheer, like, oh, gayness shouldn't be illegal. Look, a lot of conservatives don't even want gayness to be illegal, right? I'm sure there are plenty of conservatives who would say, get rid of gay marriage. I mean, it's still, what, a 60-70% issue now that people are pro gay marriage being legalized. But even like hardcore conservatives, they might say, hey, I don't want gay marriage, but would I lock somebody up if they're gay? No, that goes a little too far. So he's catching up to like some conservative American position, and we're supposed to sit here and like sing his praises because he's way better than the last guys who want to criminalize homosexuality. It's like, it's just damning with faint praise. It's just so silly. If he was really as brave as he's, acting he is, he would say, I'm for gay marriage. But he has no doctrine to back that up within Catholicism or within Christianity. And so it's difficult for him to do that. And we're left with this tortured mental gymnastics to get himself to the place where he knows he should be. But anyway, there you have it. Pope causing a little bit of controversy. Ever since Adpocalypse, when YouTube defunded all independent news and politics overnight, we haven't trusted them. We know they can pull the rug out from underneath us at any time. If you enjoy this content, please consider tipping $1 or $2 per month on the Secular Talk Patreon. Link in the video description box below. Thanks for your support.